go ahead and jump into
No!
tonight's episode of Critical Role. And welcome.
Hello everyone, this is Tucker from Dice, Ice, and Mice, and today we're going to talk about a topic which I think is very important in the D&D world, especially right now, given the state of where a lot of people are at, especially with the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount coming out, Critical Role being as successful as it is. And before I even start, I want to say I'm a huge fan of Critical Role, Vox Machina, and the Mighty Nine, and everything that the cast and crew do there. I want to say that first off. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be going and attending their live show later this month. But what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about how to become a DM after Matt Mercer. What I want to talk about first in regards to this topic is Matthew Mercer is an amazing DM in everything that I've seen. His characters that he plays and the worlds that he builds are fantastic. I have enjoyed using them in campaigns that I have run. As a matter of fact, my favorite campaign to date that I have run has been set in Exandria, specifically in Wildmount, and it was fantastic. But if you are getting into DMing, if you've been playing D&D for a little while, or if you haven't played D&D before and you are exposed to the world via Critical Role like I was, it can be very daunting. And I know people have done topics about this before in terms of measure and temper your expectations if you're starting to play D&D after watching Critical Role, because not all DMs are going to be like Matt, which is very apparent. My current DM he's not the same as Matt Mercer. He has a very different style. And, for example, he even says this himself, he's not as good with character voices as people like Matt Mercer. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. It all comes down to what you as the player want in your D&D game. And that's kind of what I want to talk about in terms of tempering your expectations. Because I came into D&D after watching Critical Role. And I started DMing. That was how I started, because none of my friends had played D&D before, and I was the pushing point behind it, so it was only logical for me to take on that role of being the DM. And especially in the post-Critical Role, especially since that's how I was introduced to it, that is very daunting. You feel like, I know that I felt this, and I imagine other people have as well, you feel like you have to have contingencies, one which way or the other. Because in the episodes of Critical Role, that as Matt portrays it, there is even if things seem to go completely one direction, he seems to have it pretty much in hand, which is mark of a great improver. But again, there are moments in the show and you can watch and you can see these where even he is flummoxed and thrown off his game by the things the players do. Perfect example of this is the episode that most recently came out. Spoilers for Campaign 2 ahead, most recently. If you haven't caught action, Modify Memory is a very good example of this. For those of you that know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Those of you that don't, you'll find out soon. So, the big part of that is, that I want to take away from that is, he seems to be very good at all of these things. That world building, the characters, all of that, the improving, voices. Play to your own strengths in this, as you play D&D. A big strength of how I am at playing the game is I am very good at when I'm playing the game, I'm very good at getting those certain voices in to distinguish between my NPCs. And I'm pretty good at getting that improv in when my character says to do something that goes completely off the rails. As irritating as it might be to me, I've gotten pretty good at adapting to it, especially because my characters are a little bit crazy. But specifically, play to your own strengths. I need you guys as future DMs and future players to know, especially those people that are trying to be DMs, to know that you will not be good at everything. You will not be able to go out and have a 4, 5, 6 hour session and have everything go perfectly. It's just not gonna happen. That's not realistic in terms of what D&D is. It's an exercise in improvisation. You're not gonna get that kind of everything goes exactly the way you want it. That being said, you still need to prep your sessions. Now that is another thing that a lot of people feel like maybe Matt doesn't do. I guarantee you Matt doesn't. If only because of the fact that you see those maps. And something that after being a DM that I've noticed is he has very specific maps or very specific areas he wants his characters to go. But sometimes those maps will never be seen. Sometimes they'll just end up going through one place for a long, long time and meeting different groups over and over and over. In which case you'll notice he has standalone maps already set to go with terrain pieces just to mirror certain areas. So it's not a matter of he knows where his characters are going or just completely working it up on the fly. He has prepped for multiple different outcomes. And that's what I want you guys to do. For example, very good example of this is my characters recently that I sent through. In a previous session, I had them running just the very beginning, they hadn't played D&D before. Started them off Lost Mines of Fendelver, a fairly low level as the starter kit. And they found out where the goblins were. They had that battle. And they just decided, well, our boss has been taken. He's dead. We're free to go. And they just stole the supplies and ran. Didn't even go to Fandolin. Didn't do any of that. Just booked it. It was like, okay, just go ahead, close that book and set it aside. Literally, they decided to completely throw aside everything. And they didn't even know what was coming up, but they decided to just throw that all aside and essentially set off on their own adventure. And you just as a DM need to be able to improv that, which is something Matt is good at. So the prep is key, but you can't prep for everything. And be prepared for your characters to go off the rails. Another big thing I want to talk about, especially because it seems like Matt has endless supply of miniatures and they just continue on and on and on and on and on. He has one for every situation, so to go boom, 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 boom. Important thing, very, very important. Do not try to build your miniature collection all at once. What I have here is a combination of about 2 years worth of miniature collecting. I also have my little, I have some bead cases which have my regular size minis in it. I have 2 of those and they're just filled. But what you see behind me and those is the extent of my mini collection after 2 years. Matt has been collecting his minis for like his entire life. Don't try to build an entire miniature collection all in one. There's a lot of minis that you can sub in to represent things. I have an example of this. I have a bunch of bandit minis that I'll throw in to represent pirates, guards, anything like that at the moment, just because I don't have the actual minis. Although I did just get guards, I need to paint those. Another good example of this is I have 3, for what they would essentially be, is they essentially look like Dementors. Just kind of these cloaked, hooded things. I'll subs those in, ghosts, shadows, specters, anything like that if I need them at the moment. Don't feel like you need to stretch your resources too thin in order to bring it in. Some D&D games don't even use minis, don't even have the battle mat at all. Some don't have the battle mat, others will have the battle mat and just use tokens. The prime example of a good D&D game that I have seen that doesn't function with a battle mat or minis at all is, if you are interested, go check it out, the Outside Xbox and the Outside Extra guys and their Ox Venture team do an amazing game without any battle mat or many minis or anything like that. So that might be something worth checking out if you're interested in that. Essentially, where I want this to go is don't try to be Matthew Mercer as you DM your games, because you can't. I can't, other people can't, it's impossible. for anyone to emulate exactly what he's done. You're not going to become a successful D&D streamer or anything like that. Don't start DMing with that in mind, that you're going to make it rich on Twitch or YouTube by streaming D&D. Especially please don't do that. It's such a sad way to think about something that has come so far and done so many good things, and to put it down to just being a money thing or some form of fame. Because it's more than that to even the Critical Role guys. Primarily what we want you guys to think is, how can you make it fun for your players? Don't get mad at your players. You will have players that are really, really bad. Not necessarily at playing, but might just be, for lack of a better term, some players that you get in might be bad people. And it might not be a healthy gaming environment. And so you might have to cut those people loose. That is something that we haven't got to see really with the Critical Role team, depending on what you believe in regards to the conspiracy theory regarding Orion Akaba. They don't really cut people loose. It's the Critical Role crew. That's what they do. They're very close friends, and they play D&D. But if you were starting a campaign, you might have players that you need to cut loose. Maybe they're just bringing down the experience for everyone else. You have to try to make it as fun for your players as possible. And very much, right, so I rightfully know sometimes that means you won't get as much rest or other things like that, but it all depends on how committed to the group you are. I want to end this video by saying Matthew Mercer is doing, and I'm going to repeat this, Matthew Mercer has done an incredible job and is an incredible DM, and there are many things we can learn from him in terms of how to be a DM. His GM tips that he's done are an amazing resource. I watched those, I've learned many things from him. And even just watching him run his campaigns, I've learned things. But you need to find your own voice as the DM and not try to emulate what other people have done. That's the big takeaway I want from this. Be your own DM and don't just follow others. Because that's part of the glory. Every DM is a little bit different, and that's why you can you can play Minds of Phandelver with 3 different DMs, and it'll be a completely different experience. That's the brunt of it. Find your own voice as the DM. Don't try to emulate him. You can learn, but don't try to emulate people like Matthew Mercer or any of that. My water heater just came on, so now there's this extra loud. I already know it's echo. I already know my room, my dungeon right now is echoey. I need to get some carpeting in here. But I mean, that's the downside of moving into a new apartment. But I digress. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch this. I hope you guys take the points I brought up here, and I hope you utilize them. And I want you all to have a fantastic rest of your day. If you like this video, please hit a like button down below. You can go ahead and leave a comment, tell me what you think. If you disagree with any of the things I've said, if you have any things you'd like to add, please go ahead and let me know. I value feedback from my community, however small it is at this time. And please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys all in the next video.